thank you for being seated. We will have an invocation. And Peter, if you will come up, please. Peter Schober is the minister of the University Congregational Church. And more than that, he's my minister.
It's not easy to be Fernhardt's minister either. But it is nice to see so many of my parishioners on a Sunday. That hasn't happened. My friends, let us, for a moment, turn towards that which does go beyond us. Let us be in prayer. Holy One, we are your people, gathered from far and near to hear words of hope, to hear words of peace, to be renewed in the sensibility that we are indeed more together than we could ever be alone. May this gathering be a reminder to us that the words we share must become flesh in order to be true. Help us to speak the truth in love. Guide us away from simple yearnings for power and give us instead a passion for justice. Guide us away from our own self-interested desires and deliver within us an aching to accomplish those things which outlive us. And turn us toward a courageous compassion which gives food to the hungry, acceptance to the excluded, and care for those who are so easily forgotten. Compassion, O God, for creation itself, that we may be stewards of the wonderful gifts of the land, the air, and water. We pray this day for Vice President Gore, Representative Williams, Jack Mudd, and all the people we entrust as our leaders. Bless them, their staffs, their families. Give them wisdom. Give them the courage of their convictions. And let them know always your vision of peace. As we break this bread together, let us also be reminded of what this has meant to us throughout history. And may blessings be given to the good earth that provides it, the hands that prepared it, and those of us who share it. In your sacred name we pray. Amen.
It's my honor to introduce Max Baucus. I remember when he ran his first race, A Young Man with a Dream. Max is still a young man, and he still carries Montana's dream. I could be very formal, but in Montana, what we say is, welcome, Max.
Thank you very much, Fern. Isn't it wonderful how lucky we are as Montanans to be Montanans on a glorious day like today and have visit us today the Vice President of the United States of America. I'm going to begin by reminding all of us that there's no doubt that this is a tough year. It's a tough political year. And that's because history shows that midterm elections are always tough for the party that holds the White House. It's an uphill climb, and this year is no different. We've all heard the pundits who say that the climb is steep and we may not do so well. But I am an optimist, and I'm an optimist for two very simple reasons. One, in the Senate race, we have by far the candidate with by far the best strengths, the best qualities than the other guy, and that is Jack Mudd. And I also have a very deep, abiding belief in the good common sense of Montana people to do the right thing. Jack Mudd is a native Montanan. Can't say that for the other guy. Jack Mudd is a fourth-generation Montanan. Certainly can't say that for the other guy. Jack is the former dean of the law school right here in Missoula, a family man, and a veteran. All veterans of whatever war should endorse and work, including the Vietnam vets, for Jack Mudd. A man who understands the beauty of our environment and the need to pass it down to our children. Jack is a solid Montanan, a wonderful person, and will be a great senator. This issue, this race, is important critically for Montana. It is also critical for our nation. I'm not exaggerating to say that this particular race here in Montana could hold the key for the whole country. This is a Senate seat we Democrats can and must take back. I cannot overstate how much that means. Besides the midterm election problem, we have, as Democrats, 22 seats up for re-election. Republicans have 13. The numbers are not in our favor. Those are pretty simple numbers. But if we don't win this race, there's a real chance that the Republicans will take over the Senate. And do you know what that means? Jesse Helms taking over chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Alphonse D'Amato in charge of the Banking Committee. Think of it. Where do you get the next one? Bob Packwood in charge of the Finance Committee. It gets worse. Frank Murkowski from Alaska taking over the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, and the so-called wise use movement making the calls on everything from mining reform to wilderness to national park concessions to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Those are plain and simple facts, and that is resting on all of our shoulders right here in Montana. We have an awesome responsibility. But we can do it. We will do it. We are right on the issues. We have by far the best candidate, and I deeply believe in the good sense of our people. So for the next 44 days, we have to work harder than ever before. Every dollar, every phone call, every volunteer is critical. So I say thank you to all for coming. Particular thanks to our Vice President. It is now my great pleasure and honor to introduce the next United States Senator from Montana, Jack Mudd.
Vice President, Max and Pat, distinguished guests and friends. It is a wonderful responsibility to be able to stand here before you today as the candidate to represent this wonderful state, Montana. We have a television ad running now that talks about my great-grandparents who came to this state over 100 years ago. And that's not as much a biographical statement as it is a statement of perspective. Because this race is about the next 100 years. My great-grandparents were pioneers in this country, and we are the pioneers for the next century. I was looking out to see the person who made my first campaign sign, our next-door neighbor, Sierra, who has a wonderful name that's indicative of that future, a wonderful young girl who, when I announced, came back and had a little handwritten sign in the front yard. This race is about Sierra and all the kids like her. This race is whether we're going to turn the clock back and make some of the mistakes that have been made in our past and look at our resources as something to take for ourselves only, or whether we're going to look forward and say we have a responsibility not just to ourselves, but to those who will come and speak in this room, in this place, 100 years from now. That's our responsibility, and that's what this race is about. It's a pleasure to gather at this place because I learned a lot on this campus, and I hope I shared lessons with students on this campus. I have said often in the campaign, half of my life has been spent working in education. And again, the question is whether we will create for our students, our children and our grandchildren in the next century, the kind of education that will allow them to compete in the global economy that they will face. This race, for me, is about helping to make for Sierra and all of her children and the people who come after us the best education system in the world, bar none. That's what this race is about. And it's particularly appropriate for the Vice President to be here, because in an age when one of the most difficult things that we face as a country is trust in government and responsive government, Mr. Vice President, we're happy for you and for the President to have undertaken something that most time Democrats are not associated with, and that is we're pleased that you're helping to make government more responsive. We're pleased that under this administration, the government will be the smallest since John Kennedy, that 272,000 government people that are not necessary that government will be shrunk. We're happy that under this administration, for the first time since Harry Truman, because of your efforts and because of the support of people like Max and Pat, the deficit for these children will fall for 3 years in a row for the first time since Harry Truman. We are grateful for that. So whether it's reinventing government, whether it is looking out to the future in how we balance for these children and our grandchildren the proper sense of economic growth and sustaining that economic growth in the wonderful place we call Montana, whether it's about taking care of the health care needs of our children, whether it's about taking care of an education, creating for them an education that they can use in the next century, this race, more than any race that I can recall, is about the next century. I pledge to you, and it is an honor to be able to say this to this wonderful group of friends, I pledge to you on behalf of Maggie and our family that we will give this everything we have, because you have given to us a sacred trust. You have entrusted to us your hopes, your dreams, your vision for the future. We can do no better than to give you our best effort to make it happen. We are going to make a change in November. We're going to win. Thank you very much for coming.
We have a very special opportunity. We're going to have a presentation by Native American drummers. They will do a song which is their traditional way, their Native people's way of communicating. Each song is different. This is an honor song. It is given in respect for an individual's achievement, and Vice President Gore is the one we will dedicate this to. This honor song is for Vice President's great achievements. After the honor song, Anthony Howlett and Sean Decker will present the Vice President with a gift on behalf of all of the Indian tribes in Montana. This is a very special thing for us to have before us. It is the tradition that we all stand.
Mr. President, on behalf of the tribes in the state of on the state of Montana, we would like to present you with these buckskin gloves. They were made by two members of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. They're a gift to you as a token of our appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. One of our good fortunes in Montana is that we have a diverse state, and this is one of the greatest parts of our diversity. I have the opportunity to introduce Pat Williams. All of you know Pat. The last time I sat at the head table with Pat, he hadn't brought Carol, and we almost don't count those visits when he doesn't bring Carol, but we've all known Pat since his beginning here, and we're very grateful that he has persevered in Congress and supported us in so many ways. It's wonderful, and I'm sure all of you have the same feeling that when we call or write, we get a letter back and it's signed Pat or Max, and they call us. It's a wonderful opportunity in our state to have this good feeling of friendship and familiarity. So I'll simply introduce our good friend, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Fern. Mr. Vice President, Senator Baucus, soon to be Senator Jack Mudd, Carol Maggie, honored guest, my fellow Montanans, Congressman Al Gore was sent by his constituents in Tennessee to the United States House of Representatives one term, 2 years before my constituents sent me. And so during almost all of Al Gore's time in the House of Representatives, he and I served together. And I watched his genius as an effective legislator. He and I were colleagues together on trying to make sense out of defense policy in the 1980s, trying to establish an energy and technology policy that would meet the future of his state and my state and this nation as we move together into the next century. And Al Gore and I worked to preserve and protect the environment in his state and in my state and in this country. And then in 1985, Al Gore made, 84, Al Gore made the only mistake I've seen him make. He decided to move on to the Senate and did so successfully and moved as quickly as anyone in my lifetime into an important and respected position among his 100 peers in the United States Senate. And then, as we know, Al Gore joined the Clinton ticket and was, we are all grateful for, elected Vice President of the United States. As Vice President of the United States, Al Gore has now began doing, and to some degree accomplished a great part of what many Americans talk about, and that is truly getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse, truly making the federal government more efficient. Others talk about it, but Al Gore, with his Reinventing Government and his National Performance Review, is actually doing it, and we are very grateful for your work, Mr. Vice President. But perhaps, Mr. Vice President, more important to us in Montana who live in this wonderful, clean environment is your work and your wisdom in understanding that this planet must heal. The environmental scars must be closed over, and under no condition can be allowed to continue to spread. And it will be that for which the vice presidency of Al Gore is remembered. You can't imagine, perhaps you can, how much pleasure it gives me to say, neighbors, friends, my fellow Montanans, the Vice President of the United States of America, Al Gore.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your warm welcome. I'm just delighted to be here. And Pat, thank you for your generous introduction and your longtime friendship and partnership. To you and Carol, it's a pleasure to be here. To my friend and colleague Max Baucus, with whom I have had the privilege of fighting many battles in your behalf. It's great to be with you. To the next senator from the state of Montana, Jack Mudd, and Maggie Mudd and his family. To Kelly Addy, chair of the state party, who has been giving me good advice here, and to Attorney General Joe Mazurik, to all of the elected officials, to the other candidates present, to our MC Fern Hart, to the tribal leaders who presented us today this honor song, and to the people who performed this honor song from the Salish and Kootenai tribes on behalf of all the tribes of Montana. Thank you very much. I was very touched by that, and your gift is a very meaningful one to me, and I'm really grateful to you. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, it is so great to be back in Montana. I first came to this state about a week after I came back from the Vietnam War, when my wife Tipper and I put a tent in the trunk of our Chevrolet and came out here and went camping. And I've been back many times since then. I was with Max not long ago at Bozeman, and we had a full day on information technology and the information superhighway and some of the other issues related to creating new jobs for the future here. And to be able to come back on this occasion to speak on behalf of two of the finest candidates, one who I know very well from my years of partnership in the Congress with, and another who I know by reputation here at this great institution, and from mutual friends and from the strength of his character, which is so evident to people who've worked with him and known him. To be able to stand on behalf of these two candidates and join you in supporting their candidacy is really a great privilege. I also want to thank you for what I thought was an audible expression of sympathy when I came in on my crutches. I appreciate that. I did this playing basketball in the House Gymnasium in Washington. I'm a big sports fan. Incidentally, how about those undefeated Grizzlies? That's a pretty good sports note. But I did this playing basketball, and I told a group that I hadn't practiced the helicopter dunk in so long I just came down wrong on it. The basketball part's true anyway. They tell me I'll have to keep this new cast on my leg for another 5 months, and that I'll have to keep the old full body cast for another several years. The doctors told me after the operation they were shocked when they opened up my leg and found termites. I was under total anesthesia for almost 90 minutes, and so I formally transferred the powers of my office as Vice President to the Speaker of the House, and when I regained consciousness, Speaker Foley was restored to full power. It hasn't really cramped my style too much. It does take me twice as long to walk socks now, but other than that, it hadn't been too much trouble. But the sympathy helps. Now, Bob Dole hasn't been willing to sign my cast yet, but I appreciate I do appreciate it. You know, I got used to hearing stories like that several years ago. It's no secret that I ran for president in 1988, although it seemed like one at the time. It was a character-building experience, and I learned a lot of stories. Al Gore is so stiff, racks buy their suits off him. Al Gore is an inspiration to the millions of Americans who suffer from Dutch elm disease. Al Gore is so boring, his Secret Service code name is Al Gore. If you use a strobe light, it looks like Al Gore is moving. How do you tell Al Gore from a room full of Secret Service agents? He's the stiff one. It's all right, I can take it. Every time I hear a new one, I always have the same reaction. Very funny, Tipper. It was in order to escape that demeaning ridicule and reclaim my dignity that I decided to run for Vice President of the United States of America. Thank you. And that has been a character-building experience. But it has made me a more optimistic person because I've noticed a pattern in my voting as Vice President. Now, the news media, with all due respect, has almost completely missed it. I used to be a member of the news media. But if you watch on C-SPAN, and incidentally, Pat, I hope you noticed that I was recently named one of the 50 sexiest men on C-SPAN. Thank you very much. If you watch my voting as Vice President on C-SPAN, you will find this pattern holds up. Every time I vote, we win. It works like a charm. You watch. It's a pleasure to be on the same campus where Mike Mansfield taught. My father served with Mike Mansfield. The library here bears his name. He was one of America's great leaders of the 20th century, a great leader still. He really brought dignity and respect to all of the people who selected him as a senator. He established a tradition that needs to be restored. One of the questions in your Senate race is whether or not Montana will have a senator who votes with Jesse Helms or one who votes like Mike Mansfield and represents this state with dignity and leadership. Mike Mansfield actually taught Jack Mudd's mother and father, I understand. and it's great to be here for Jack. It's great to be here for Pat Williams, too. What a great job Pat Williams has done for this state. Fantastic. These guys are committed to putting people first and making America work for working families again. That's really what this whole campaign is about in 1994. You know, Max and I have had an opportunity to fight in your behalf on so many occasions. And we talked in 1992 during the campaign that year about the need for a new economic blueprint in America, a new approach that would put working families first. Well, 20 months have passed. Has there been change? Yes. And it's time to review the record. Change of an enduring kind happens when you put the people in the driver's seat and really fight hard for them. Sometimes the football fans, watch for the 95-yard touchdown pass, and they don't really feel the same when a team is gaining 3 yards with a cloud of dust over and over and over again. But a team that controls the ball and keeps on moving and is willing to pick itself up and charge into the line again and again will gain a lot of yardage and score a lot of points. More than a year and a half after we changed the blueprint, it's time to look at the record. 20 months ago, we were in a triple-dip recession. Every time the economy got a little strength going, it would fall back into recession. We were losing 10,000 jobs a week. Unemployment was rising. Bankruptcies were rising. I used to say everything that should be up is down, everything that should be down is up. They had it upside down, and we've been turning it right side up. Now, 20 months later, instead of a triple-dip recession, we have a strong, sustainable economic recovery. Instead of losing 10,000 jobs a week, we're gaining 30,000 jobs a week, and the average wages in these new jobs is half again higher than the average wages for jobs in the economy as a whole. Right here in Montana, more than 15,000 jobs have been created in the last 20 months, 90% of them in the private sector. The unemployment rate has dropped by almost 2 full percentage points in a year and a half here in Montana because we started putting the emphasis on working people. The Help Wanted Index is up 50% in the last year and a half because there are more jobs available here in Montana. Annual growth in personal income has been 8 times faster in the last year and a half than during the previous administration. New business incorporations are up 16%. Bankruptcies are down more than 11%. Bank lending is up almost $500 million more in bank lending as the economy begins to recover when it fell sharply during the previous administration. Consumer confidence is up. Building permits are up 25%. Ladies and gentlemen, nationwide, we've seen 4.3 million new jobs created, and we've seen a change in focus. What accomplished this? Well, of course, what all the sound and fury is all about when they started criticizing bitterly that we were changing things was that the wealthiest 1.2% got a tax rate increase. No one else did. They tried to pretend like others did, but no one else did, only the wealthiest 1.2%. And 15 million working families got a big tax cut. Now that translates here in Montana to a fact that only the 2,000 wealthiest taxpayers in Montana got a tax rate increase, and 23 times that number got a tax cut. Now that's a shift in priorities. 5,500 small businesses in Montana got a tax cut. Now, why does that make a difference? It may not make news, but I'm telling you this, when a working family gets an extra $100 in a paycheck every 2 weeks, it may not make news, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference to that family, and it makes a difference to Montana, and it makes a difference to America. Those are the families we're fighting for. Those are the families that need someone to fight for them. And the reason it works is very simple. Those families take that extra $100 every 2 weeks and they spend it in the stores. And when the store owners have to put more goods on the shelves, they call the factory. And when the factory owner gets more orders than she can fill, she hires more people and more jobs are created. That is a simplified version of exactly why our economy has been recovering, while under the last economic blueprint, so tilted toward those at the top, it began failing very badly. Now, at the same time, we've been able to pass legislation like the Family and Medical Leave Act to protect families who need to be with a sick or injured child and not choose between that child and putting bread on the table for the rest of the family. We've been able to pass an expanded access to student loans, and 72,000 students and former students in Montana will benefit from these new student loan reforms. We've been able to pass the National Service Act, which makes it possible for 20,000 young people, more than served in the Peace Corps at its height, to build up their communities and serve their country while earning college tuition credits at the same time. That's an idea that works for America. Thanks to Pat Williams' leadership on education matters, we've been able to pass Goals 2000, the most sweeping education reform in more than 2 generations, and the School to Work program to give those who don't go on to college the skills they need to hold down the new jobs that we're creating in the economy. That's the American way. We've expanded Head Start. We've passed Motor Voter to increase participation. And we've reduced the budget deficit, as Jack mentioned. You know, in 12 years' time, the last bunch quadrupled the national debt. And historians of the future will study as hard as they might and never fully understand how a group that posed as fiscal disciplinarians could quadruple the national debt in only a dozen years. But at a time when the deficit was still rising, we took over, and in the first year we cut it 40%. And we will decrease the deficit for 3 years running. And one of the ways we're doing it is by reinventing government, by taking the good ideas that the best managed private companies have used to become competitive in this world marketplace and apply those ideas to the government, to empower employees, eliminate the unnecessary layers of middle management, start measuring performance and results instead of just the inputs, start getting rid of the unnecessary red tape and bureaucracy and suffocating centralized micromanagement that just tells employees that they're nothing but part of the machinery, and instead ask them to join in a common effort to reach the goals that we all agree need to be met. And in the process, we are creating a smaller federal bureaucracy than at any time since John Kennedy was president. Jack has spoken about this so eloquently. We need help on this. Max and Pat have been real leaders in partnership to reinvent government. As a matter of fact, last week we just published 1,500 customer service standards so the American people can hold the government accountable. Every single agency and department now has to publicly list what standards they're going to meet and how they can be held to them, so that when we evaluate them from now on, What we'll be evaluating is not how much money they got in their budget last year. That's the technique that has been used. What we evaluate is whether they're doing the job or not. And we involve the employees in helping us understand how to make it work better. This is just common sense, but it hadn't been done before. And I want to say a word about an issue that's very important to me, and that is protecting the environment. You are very privileged to have Max Baucus and Pat Williams, two environmental advocates representing you in the Senate and in the House. Pat has been a great leader in the House on issue after issue. He has been an ally for me, and I understand his opponent worked for James Watt. Is that right? As part of that, James Watt, and who was the pardon me? Yeah, and that group there, and Gorsuch, they were the Bonnie and Clyde of environmental policy back then. And Pat has done an outstanding job, as has Max. And Jack Mudd has spoken very eloquently and has backed up his words with personal commitment to create jobs in the process of saving the environment and to start looking at these issues in a common sense way and bring people together to avoid telling these young children that when they grow up, their futures will not be diminished by what we do today. Rather, their futures ought to be enhanced. And that's the approach that is really important to securing our future. Pat Williams, of course, is recognized as the champion of both Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks, helped pass the Old Faithful Protection Act, and Jack and I have talked about these issues as I mentioned. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is a clear choice confronting you and confronting our nation in 1994. You have outstanding nominees here. And our nation is really at a fork in the road. Montana is at a fork in the road. What kind of future are we going to create for these youngsters? What kind of choices will we make about education and environment and jobs for working people? These are matters that really go to the heart of what our country stands for. I had the privilege recently of going to another country in behalf of the United States to witness the swearing in of Nelson Mandela as president of the new South Africa. We've had a lot of successes, incidentally, with peace breaking out in Northern Ireland, we hope, and gaining momentum in the Middle East, we hope, and the third, fourth, and fifth largest nuclear powers giving up all their nuclear weapons now. No Russian missiles targeted on American cities for the first time in my life. And against that backdrop, I went to the inauguration of Nelson Mandela, and it was personally very moving for me because it enabled those of us there to look at a nation choosing the right fork in a road. And as he raised his hand to take the oath, I found myself thinking about a personal moment 4 years ago when he was released from prison, and I was up early watching it on live television, as many around the world were, and the only other person awake in our household was our youngest child, my son, who was then 7. And he came into the family room and sat next to me on the couch and asked me what was going on. And I explained, I thought pretty well. And he said, why? And I gave another answer that I thought was really good. And he said, why? He got on a why tear. And those of you with young kids know they'll do that sometimes. And I began to feel frustrated. And all of a sudden I caught myself. And I realized how many times with him and with my other children when they were young, I had had the burden of trying to explain some awful tragedy or the existence of evil, some terrible event that was shown on the television news. Parents have that burden. And there's so much that just shouldn't happen. I saw a movie called Grand Canyon where one of the characters said, it's not supposed to be this way. Violence in the streets, homeless on the sidewalks, AIDS, Rwanda. And when little children say why, it's hard to explain why. But here was an opportunity to explain something very positive and hopeful. And so I warmed to the task. And I thought of all that as I was there watching him take the oath. And when President Mandela finished taking the oath, I determined that I would spend the next few days in South Africa trying to understand how that had come about. And what I found was not only the courage of Nelson Mandela, the vision of de Klerk, who helped create that transition, but something else that had not been emphasized in the news media. I found men and women who had been successful in business and in the professions, in farming, people who never got into the news, never did anything especially controversial, but just wanted a good way of life for their families. And they looked at the terrible prophecies for South Africa's future, and they decided they were going to take personal responsibility for making it come out differently. And black and white, men and women of all ethnic backgrounds, reached across the barriers that divided them, joined hands, and made up their minds and their hearts that they were going to create a future much brighter than any they were told it was permissible for them to even dream of. And they went about that task successfully. We face a similar choice in the United States of America in the 1990s. The problems are different, but we also stand at a fork in the road. I remember vividly when I was against the Vietnam War in the 1960s, I heard some voices on the left that I thought were just out of touch with reality in our nation and didn't really have a firm grip on what America was all about. In the 1990s, I hear voices on the right that are out of touch with reality, that talk about things that just bear no relationship to what the heart and soul of the United States of America is all about. And they're trying to seize control. They're trying to take the reins of power. The most important choice is to get involved. And then your first choice is the selection of leaders. People like Pat Williams and Jack Mudd have the vision and the heart, the commitment and the determination, the skill and the experience, and the understanding of what our nation is all about and what Montana is all about. So make no mistake, what you do here in Montana makes a big difference for the future of this state and for the future of our country. A lot is riding upon your success in lifting up these two great candidates and allowing them to take the kind of excellence in your behalf to the councils of government in our nation. For your willingness to do that, to be involved, to make a difference, to work hard, and to support these candidates, I want to say from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all those who believe in our country's bright future, thank you very much. Let's elect Pat Williams and Jack Mudd as the next United States Senator from Montana. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take a hand.
Thank you for honoring us today, Mr. Vice President, and I know you have a plane to catch, but one of the most honored people from my home country is here. The chief of the Blackfeet tribe, Earl Oldperson, has a gift to present to you from the Blackfeet Community College, and it is on behalf of all 29 tribally controlled community colleges across the United States. He understands the sacredness of the land and the value of education, and he wants to honor you for sharing that understanding with him.
Is he coming up here?
Yes.
How do you do, sir? All right.
I understand that the security people have a red box that is the gift, and I mean, we aren't taking any chances here today.
Before I go on, I would like to have my fellow colleague to be up here witnessing this gift. Chairman of the Sailors Kootenai, Mickey Pablo, would you please come on up? Mr. Vice President Al Gore, and to our legislatures, and to the Senator-to-be, Jack Mudd, I want to present this gift to you on behalf of a group of young people who are wanting to help you and your fellow colleagues in the efforts, the endeavors that you are wanting to make and set for our young people and for the upcoming generation. We as a natives are still hoping, and we are hoping that through your leadership that you will carry out the efforts of my fellow Indian Americans. We have people who want to go into the higher learning, to prepare themselves, to give themselves and their people a future. And as it's been said here, that whatever is done here today, and as we go on, that they will be part of that precedence, that pathway that is set, and in the future, that they may be also referred to, that they helped you set the goal. On the behalf of the Blackfeet Community College, all of the 29 colleges throughout the United States, I want you to be honored with this gift.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.